now we're going to have a think about negative numbers. And if I showed you this to start with, 1 take away 4, my first question is my answer going to be positive or negative? And how do we know? Well, we know that the value of the negative number is higher than the value of the positive number, so our answer must be negative. Now, if we just take this number line as an example, and I've drawn it vertically because sometimes it's easier to see negative numbers, almost like in the form of a thermometer. So we had 1, didn't we? And we took away 4. So we could count back 1, 2, 3, 4, and we could see that our answer would be -3. So yes, it's a negative number, and you can see once you've established that principle, you know it's negative. Look how we could simply take 1 away from 4 to give us, so we find the difference between those numbers and it becomes a negative number because that value is higher. Similarly, if we had -2, add 3, my first question is our answer going to be positive or negative? Well, this time we've got a higher value as a positive number, so our answer must be a positive number. And this time we would start at -2. We're going to count on 3, 1, 2, 3, and our answer is 1. So actually, once we know it's a positive number, if we find the difference between those two numbers, it gives us our answer. Now, it starts to get a bit trickier when we have something like this. So we start with -1, and then we're adding a -2, and sometimes you'll see it written like that. Now, in thinking about it this time, we know our start position. I'll start here, so it's at -1. Now, if you think about this as a temperature, for instance, let's say it's -1 outside and it gets a bit colder and the temperature drops by another 2 degrees. So the temperature would drop, so we'd count on 1, 2, and our answer would be negative or -3. Now, another way of showing that, which sometimes can cause us a bit of a challenge, we can also write it as -1, -2. So both of those are effectively the same sum, just written slightly differently. So we combine the negatives to get to -3. Right, now, the last bit I think is probably the most challenging. And this is where we are subtracting a negative number. Right, okay. Let's just think, I'll just write that down so we've got a record, a negative number, subtracting a negative number. Let's just say I had 2 pens and I said to you, I want you to remove them. So, okay, we remove our pens. What have we got left? Well, we've got nothing left, have we? So I could write that and say I've got 2 pens and I take it away. I take the 2 pens away, so it leaves me with nothing. Now, let's use that principle and say, okay, instead of now, and I can't show this, but I can write it. I've got -2. And if I said to you, okay, take -2 away, what would you have left? And you say, well, we'd have nothing left. So actually, we could write it like that. -2 take away a -2 would leave us with 0. Now that is really helpful because what it shows us is when we have a negative next to a negative, it has the same impact really of actually adding. So if you think about to get back to 0, if we said what's -2 add 2, the answer would be 0. Now let's use that principle just to try another couple of examples. So let's say I had -3 and I wanted to subtract -1. There we go. Now, because of the principle that we've just learned, and we can see that when we've got the negative and the negative, do you remember? We can turn that into a positive. So we end up with -3 add 1, and the answer would be -2. And that's it.